and we are moving on to another piece. Big change of pace here, mostly kind of for the exercise because there's some techniques I want to work with you guys on that you can apply to anything. And, we'll just, of course, make them special to this piece, but it's also stuff you can use anywhere in the future. We'll use some isolations, weight shifts, kind of getting into the ground, into the floor, using the floor to do various things, balance, and all of that. So this song is from 1987, and it's called the La Japonaise, and it's with Freddie Mercury from Queen, and he does a duet with an opera singer called Montserrat Caballé, and he was inspired both by his lifelong love of opera and by his love of Japan. So they got together, and he had a big hand in writing it himself. And it's really that kind of going back and forth from the very kind of trained opera voice to Freddie Mercury's voice, and some very pretty lyrics in there. And so I thought there's an opportunity there to do a lot of the things that we need just about any dance. That even if you don't see them being applied, that's what they are. And just kind of inspired because I also have a lifelong love of Japan, and I wanted to be Japanese when I was a kid so bad. Oh gosh. And the geisha culture of Kyoto. But I have a whole story about that. But this is, of course, just inspired by, it's nothing actually to do with it. But I think it's so beautiful, and there's a lot to learn from that, even though it's kind of a culture that, keeps to itself more. It's generally not as, as out there by their wish. So, we've talked a lot about weight shift, and we talked a lot about this. I like to talk about this square that, so your shoulders and hips are the corners of the square, and they've got these lines going out. Now, we do often distort this square, but that's very deliberate. So unless you have to, I want you to think about keeping that square where it is without moving, without going different directions, without it bending its sides, because that has a lot to do with stability and balance. So instead, very often when we're shifting our weight onto a foot, we're not shifting it unevenly unless that's part of the choreography. We're sliding our squares along a surface, which will already bring us to our leg in a good sturdy position, right? So instead of stepping on it and trying to find, to stack everything on top of that leg, you're moving right onto it with your square, and you're right where you need to be. So in that end, today's going to be just kind of some exercises, and we'll start just a little bit. Another thing we're working on here is kind of finer hand movements, and also contrasts, which we love to do. So we're going to go from one style to kind of smaller movements to great big movements and all that. So I'm going to start with this weight shifting exercise. So you've got a nice sturdy base, and this is a lot of like repetition. So yeah, but repetition is what it's all about in dance. And thinking of your legs as being rooted to the floor, or like they're filled with wet sand, like they're super heavy. Like if you had to pull them off the ground, it would be really hard. So that's just kind of the feeling you want, that they're very, very sturdy, like columns. And even that square, sorry I'm so sniffly, but it's down as you go on this morning. And I want you to sink down, and another thing, which kind of softening the knees as opposed to bending them. So it's this one we are going to bend them, but just to differentiate, just kind of like not stretching your knees, letting them go a little bit, so you feel a little bit of a strain maybe in your quads more than you would than if they were either straight or, well, you feel definitely in the bend, but you still feel that, but it's not, you're not putting as much pressure as when it would be way bent. But for this one, we are going to go down. You're going to sink down. And thinking about that square and how it's gonna slide along a table. So without destroying your hips, you're gonna push into the ground with this leg. So feel like you're trying to step through the floor, like you're pushing down to go past the floor into the ground. And from there, you're gonna slide your hips along that tabletop till they're all the way on your other leg. You can test yourself here. You bring it up. In fact, that's a good one. Maybe we'll bring that leg up. And then we're gonna press into the ground, really trying to imagine that feeling of going deep into the earth. Pressing down on it, pushing the floor, sliding your square onto the other leg. And if you feel nice and stacked, pick up that leg. Now see, I distorted a little bit, which made me lose my balance. So I want you to just pick it right up and bring it in. Bottom your square. And then right back down again. Square is still there. Then pushing down with this leg, push into the ground. Feel gravity pulling you there. And moving that square all the way over to this leg and bring that foot right up. And then bring it right back down. And pushing the ground. Let's do one more right and left. And bringing up that leg. Bring it back down. And pushing into the floor. Sliding that square across the flat surface. Bringing that leg up. And come back down. Something we use a lot, also when we're walking. Very often we'll catch balance all of a sudden. So let's do the same thing. Just a couple times forward and back. Same thing with that square when you're sliding it onto a leg in front. And then lift it from there. And pushing into the ground, sliding back. And lifting your leg there. Back into the ground. Pressing with that back leg onto the front. Pushing your square onto that leg. Pushing it up. And pushing that front leg. And then sliding your square to your back leg. And pulling it up. So you see it's still even here. Let's do the other leg. Pressing to the ground with your back leg, shifting that square forward, stacked on that leg, and putting down the back, pushing to the ground with your front leg, stacked on the back, pushing down, and be heavy, pushing to the ground, do it up, and pushing to the front, and lifting up that leg. And so we're going to get into these balances, but the balance is going to be mostly with one leg bent, and your legs are going to be parallel, and with one leg up here. So your hips are going to be even, and you're just going to be balanced here. So that's something, if you want to practice in between, certainly welcome to do. So another thing, I want us to just practice getting these feelings. I want you to put your feet flat on the floor, just wherever they're comfortable. And I want you to imagine that your entire foot is stuck to the ground. So there's no part of your foot that's not attached to the floor, like it's glued there, right? So, normally we have our balance somewhere or the other. This one, I want you to feel your toes on your ground. Oh, thank you, Oscar. Thank you. Thank you so much. We appreciate it. So putting your toes on the ground, feeling your toes press into the ground, and then feeling the balls of your feet. Your whole toes are pressing, not just the tips, the whole toes are pressing into the ground so they're long. The balls of your feet are pressing into the ground. The arches of your feet are pressing into the ground, and your heels are pressing into the ground. So your entire foot is flat like a pancake on the ground. I just want you to think about this feeling, remember it, and this is also going to give us a lot of stability in this piece and in other pieces when you're dancing. It's less so when you're dancing in a harder shoe or in a style that requires you to push your balance usually forward or to one side or the other. But this is when you're in something like socks or barefoot, to keep your balance and also to keep what we call grounded, meaning you're not on top of the floor, but you're into the floor and you're working with the floor to move, right? So you're pushing on the floor as opposed to just stepping. You're using that floor to help you move. So that's just an exercise to help us with that. And also just start to be aware of what part of the foot we're using. So in this one, we're going to be using a couple different parts. But just specifically to this one, I want you to feel the outer part of your foot a little bit. If you want to just take your square, and you're just going to be turning your square and swinging it over to the other side, but leaving one foot in place. So think about being on the outer part of this foot, and the other one is planted whole foot on the floor, like we just did. And then turn your square and swing that one over. And turn back your square back to the front, and you're going to plant this one, flatten it, and you swing your square over there with that outside of the foot on the leg that's moving. And back and plant it completely on the ground. And then you're going to just be on the outside of this foot. And you're just sliding your square that way. Feel a little twist in this lower leg. And back. Plant this one. Outside of the foot. This leg. And down. And coming back. So to start off this piece, we're going to be going down and up. So you want to make sure that your knees are super, super warmed up. You go down cold. I've seen people just kind of drop down on those knees, and it makes me hurt just looking at it. So if you're going down, you really want to make sure that you could just do knee bends. You can go up and down, but as you're doing those knee bends, again, think about pressing into the floor and keeping your entire foot on the ground, but make sure you're very, very warmed up. And you can really, if you have some trouble with one knee, you can start on the other leg, or you can just stretch it out and not bend as much. But as you're bending your knees, I want you to think about kind of the muscle right above your knee engaging. And that's something that, you can try to feel by putting your hand on it if it doesn't engage yet. Try and feel it under your hands, just try and engage and release it. And that is going to be keeping you steady as you go down. So if I'm just going to squat to the earth, I'm engaging that muscle to keep me sturdy and controlled. And same thing going back up. I'm using this here instead of, these will engage automatically, but I want you to concentrate on that muscle there. Because the first thing we're going to do, pretty much, is sink down, so you want that nice and strong and steady. So you're not getting wobbly like this. Does anybody else hear my knee creaking? I hear it a lot. So that's something to exercise. And before you start, we can also do a few together each time. Remember, each time, keeping your feet flat, engaging that muscle as you go down. So another thing we want to be thinking about, and it's a lot, your brain's going to feel like it's exploding, thinking about everything at once, but what I do is I usually try and each practice concentrate on something different. One thing, at the most two things, because if you try to concentrate on everything at once, it gets pretty impossible. So you want to just take a little piece from everything. Thank you again, Oscar. You made a really good test today. Thank you so much. I hope you're going to like this piece too. It's since I kind of thought of it more of an exercise, but the music is like super pretty. I think y'all are going to like it. So let's. So today's mostly exercises because when we start to do it, there are. I don't want us to just like be doing steps. I want us to understand the why and the why and the how. So that's what we're working on. So when you're going down, be sure to engage that. Another thing is to be having your core very tight. You want that pulled tight, so to minimize the wobbles. And coming down very square over your feet. So I think what other elements I wanted to work on today to prepare us. Twisting. So it's just, when we're twisting anyway, maybe you've done a lot of these, or whatever exercises. We do them sometimes in the morning routine. So I want you to think of your waist. Again, try to think of isolating your waist. Now, all our muscles, fascia, they're overlapping, and you never engage just one, but this is just what we're going to flow brain and concentrate on. To think that our hips are staying in place, and we've got our square here, so the square is only going to move like this. It's not going to, the shoulders aren't going to go anywhere. The shoulders are going to stay parallel to the hips, and the only part we're going to use is our waist. I want you to feel your waist actively engaging, so it's like this muscle stretching and turning you. So instead of using your whole body to turn, this middle part is turning you from side to side. So I want you to concentrate just on this middle bit. That is turning you. And you can make these movements smaller. Any of these movements, if you feel like, oh, it's like a strain, you have to move your shoulders to get that much, just dial it back. Just do less. You can do a tiny movement, but just concentrate on engaging that middle part. And so now I've done a few of these. I want us to turn and give me that middle part. And this time I want you to engage I'm turning to my right, to your left shoulder blade, the lower part, and I want you to feel like that shoulder blade is pushing you a little farther forward. So I've twisted on my waist without distorting anything, and now I'm taking that shoulder blade, that lower shoulder blade, I should say, where it's attached here, it's giving me a little push forward, so I'm stretching even more. So the optics of that and the feeling are, so bending here and pushing that lower shoulder blade, so you're stretching a little more in that direction. And letting it go, coming to the middle, again, twisting at the waist, and that middle part is twisting, and then using that lower shoulder blade to give a little extra. And coming back, let's do more. Shift our shoulder blade, and coming back. And twisting the waist, and that shoulder blade, up on the shoulder blade, and coming back. So eventually we're going to be bringing the arm forward, but you want to start with your body. So you want that twist. The lower shoulder blade is kind of pushing you forward without raising your arm, and then this arm is going to follow with the easier arm. So we're going to repeat all of these many times. And maybe we'll get a little exercise routine together, and hopefully each day will get easier. You can't feel part of yourself, usually putting your hand on it. That is very helpful for me, so I can, that helps me connect my brain to my body, so I can start to use the part of the body that I want to use. So another thing we're moving a lot is kind of our hands and kind of the finer movements. So again, this is something we warm up in the morning routine, or you can warm it up on your own. Make sure that your wrists are nice and warmed up, and so we always do our kind of opening and closing, get the circulation going, and try and do the same with the toes at the same time, but this one, show you about your fingers, and then kind of our what do you call it, our little scales, so thumb, index, middle, ring, pinky, 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 and then reverse it. Pinky, ring, middle, index, thumb, pinky, ring, middle, index, thumb, pinky, ring, index, thumb, thumb. So what we're also going to work on here is using our hands for expression. Our hands, very often, they're a little bit neglected because, they're kind of small and they just hang out in the ends of your arms. So, so if you've done ballet, and you're doing an arabesque, and you've got a nice line here, this kind of ruins it, right? So, we want that life in our fingers. But unfortunately, it's not something that's built into like the classical training. We're not using a lot of this. So when it comes sometimes to using our arms and using our fingers, they don't know how to engage. They're kind of like, hey, say what's going on. This pathway is not open. So this is something I want us to be using. And with that turn of the wrist, if you're using the outside of your hand to turn it, and open, and to turn back. So, your exercise, like you're grabbing an apple, releasing it, grabbing it again, turning around, and releasing it. Gathering up, rotating your wrist, letting it go, grabbing that apple, raising your wrist up, and open. The other side, you're grabbing that apple, rotating it, letting it go. Grabbing it, raising your wrist, letting it go. Grabbing your apple, your wrist, letting it go. Rotating, letting it go. Grabbing, rotating, letting it go. So that's to kind of getting us ready so we can tell a story with our hands. Because this is something that's very often used, not just in this culture, but in others. So there's a lot of, if you've seen any of the geisha dances, there's a lot of symbolism there. Looking in a mirror, reading a book, holding a fan. So there's a lot of that going on. And this is just inspired by, so it's not actually what we're doing, is not actually any part of that, but I do want us to use those hands to talk. It's like, if you're having a conversation and using those hands to express whatever it is that you're saying. So I'm trying to think of what else I wanted us to work on today. Okay, so another thing that's going to be important in this piece and just generally is kind of getting movements more fluid. So big part of this is what we already worked on. This is getting into the ground. So using the ground to keep our movements very, very smooth and continuous without, because if you're above the floor, you're going to have to engage, mostly random parts of your body a little bit more to be smooth. If you're staying close to the ground and using that ground, it's easier to get some of the fluidity and the deeper movements in there. So when you're grounding is a very hard concept. It's hard to feel, but I want you to feel like somebody's poured wet sand into your legs. Your legs are super heavy, just your legs. Your legs are super heavy. And I want you to, again, push into the ground and engage. Let's just concentrate on engaging that lower glute and using that to do our walk. We're going to just do a tiny walk, but kind of sliding your feet along the floor and using that glute to pull forward and feeling like your legs are so heavy they're full of wet sand. I just want you to walk like that. And that heavy, heavy leg, heavy legs are dragging along and backing up. So, when you're going to do a rock step in any direction, meaning you're by one leg coming back, and one leg coming back. So it's like you're rocking back and forth. This is what I want you to think of, is that feeling. So if you're stepping onto this leg, that you're stepping already, you're deep in the ground, and your whole foot is glued to the floor, and the head is pushing you back. So you're coming in, you're already heavy, deep into the floor, and you're pushing back with that leg. Do you feel difference? Do you feel difference in how that is rather than kind of going and coming back, going and coming back? Then if you have that big movement where you're going deep into the ground, coming back, and deep in the ground, and pushing off. So you're already starting to get some weight in your body, some gravity. Let's do the other side. So putting your foot flat on the floor, gluing it to the floor, and making that square over your leg and pushing and using the floor to come back. And don't come up, try to go straight across. So foot flat on the floor, you're going over it, and using the floor to push back. And going over that leg, and using the floor to go back. So again, these are things that I want us to exercise before we even start to move, because you'll feel later on, if you've already developed these techniques, it's when you're learning choreography, I mean, it really depends on where you're going, but they already assume that you know everything, you know all your technique that you'll need, and so they'll just, okay, do this, and then copy it, and that's your dance. But I want us, before we even begin to do the steps, that we have a deeper knowledge of what we're doing. So let's do one more exercise today that is going to be important. So now we're gonna lose our square. Actually, we're not. We're gonna still keep most of it. We're gonna keep the top half, 50%. And we're gonna take another step, but we're gonna step from just our hip. So if you're standing here in the middle, let's stand in the middle. And I'm gonna press into the ground with right, shift my weight to the left, and I'm gonna pick up this leg using my hip. I'm picking up my hip, and then the rest of the leg is gonna follow. Put it down. Pressing to the ground with your left leg, shifting across with your square, and lifting up just this hip. There's the leg to follow. Put your leg down, and then let your hip back down. Get your square back. Press to the ground with a flat foot. Shift to the other. Lifting this hip up. So it's like somebody just kind of took your hip and whoop, lifted it up. And then you're just lifting your leg to follow it. Let your leg go. And then pressing to the floor, flat on the floor, sliding your square along. Let's do a reset. So somebody grabbing your hip up and lifting your leg. Note that I'm not sticking anything else. I'm keeping it flat. It's just that hip that's rising up. So the hip is coming up, foot, the hip is staying up. The hip is coming down. Got our square back and sliding along. And your feet are very, very flat on the floor. And this hip is coming up. Leg is going to follow. Leg comes down. And get your square back. And slide that square. Okay, so not even really going to start today. Let's just do the very, very, very first step. So I want you to start we're going to be starting in profile. And so keeping your legs, again, next to each other, very, very, feet are flat on the floor. One leg, you can bend one leg a little bit, or even both legs. So you have a somewhat kind of softer position. Engage your core, and for your shoulders, the slightest bit forward, just like a centimeter. So we're going to do our trick of looking down even though we're not actually looking down, meaning we're looking down way into the distance. And we look down at the book. So we're going to close that book, and our hand is going to move up to hide our face. So we've got our book here, our fingers are closed, and you want a little bit of angle here. And then we're going to close the book. And this arm is going to come a little bit inwards elbow's gonna bend a little bit more, and then your hand is gonna come behind your face. At the same time, we're gonna be sinking down. So this is where knees are engaging, lower glute is engaging, and we're gonna sink down. So remember, here's again where you're using that floor. At the same time, we're closing the book. This is coming in a little bit. And once your elbow is bent, it's gonna move up, and you're gonna hide your face and peek out. So it's not completely covered, you're just peeking out from behind your fingers, like you're holding a fan. In the old days, they used to use fans to hide their faces in the courts, so they could gossip with each other. So you could be behind your fan and talk to your neighbor, and ask for a little gossip. So, but this is a different kind of fan. This is a very still fan. This is a very controlled one. That was just a aside. So when you look, that book is closing, and the hand is going in front of your face, peeking out, and pushing back up. Just something for you to practice, because it is going to be something that you're going to have to control. So again, what you want to be thinking about is engaging your core, your glutes, and this muscle right above your knee. And by engaging these three things, you're going to try and free up your upper body so that you can do these hand movements without stiffening your entire body. So, closing your book, sinking down, your elbow up, peeking from behind your fan, and coming back up. Okay, so fireflies, if you get a minute today, sink down and come up, because that is a lot on your knees, a lot of strength. So we will be repeating all this or come back to this video, but less each time. We're just going to kind of run through them quickly, these exercises, because nothing ever happens in a day. We get that from students very often. It is frustrating in the beginning. It's also frustrating all through however long you're learning, that things don't come right away. They really are, it's about muscle memory, constant repetition, and all of that. So trying to make it a little more fun by, doing our routines. So I hope you will join me on Friday, and we are going to get more into the choreography, but we're also going to kind of repeat these techniques, because this is stuff you're going to be able to use later on, whatever style you're using, going to the floor. You're going to need that engagement of your foot, of grounding, of engaging the right muscles and so forth, and freeing your upper body. Thank you so much for joining me, my fireflies. We'll probably be going live again tonight, so join us for that. And my love to all of you. I just want to say thank you so much for all your support, for your subscriptions, for your likes, for your viewing and hanging out with us, because that's what makes it so fun, is hanging out together. So have a wonderful rest of your Wednesday, my fireflies, and I will see you soon. Bye-bye.